So today's topic is going to be something that is really painful and tender for a lot of women. And we're going to be talking about the mother wound today. If you are new to my channel, welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. My name is Andrea. I'm an intuitive spiritual guide. I teach dark feminine wisdom, selfish bitch embodiment, and I also teach women how to become the supreme authority in their lives. And the reason why I'm doing this video today is because the mother wound is something that comes up in all of my work. It comes up in nearly all of my sessions with my one on one clients. It comes up in my classes, my master classes, my courses. It comes up in my retreats. And I've taught on the mother wound in the past. I used to have a class called the Sovereign Daughter, or excuse me, the Liberated Daughter. My new offering is called Sovereign Daughter, which I'll talk to you about a little bit later. But Liberated Daughter was what I used to teach. And it's been a few years since I taught that class. And recently, I've had a few women reaching out to me and asking if I'm going to be re releasing that class. And in my last offering, which was my Selfish Bitch initiation, most of the women that were in that program were women who were dealing with really difficult relationships with their mothers, abusive mothers, narcissistic mothers, emotionally immature mothers, emotionally distant and cold mothers, the entire spectrum of pain and trauma is what the women have been dealing with. And this topic is also near and dear to my heart because of my experience with my own mother and the path that I've walked in healing my mother wound. And even though I have done such tremendous work to heal my mother wound, I still have moments of tenderness around my relationship with my mother as well. This is a journey that really never ends. And that's just the nature of healing in general. And so I titled this video, When Your Mother is Your First Bully, because for so many of us that have mother wounds, this is the experience that we have where the woman that gave us life, the woman that birthed us, the woman that raised us, the woman who was supposed to be our biggest protector, our greatest guide, the most loving force in our lives, often became the most adversarial, combative, and even violent force in a lot of our lives. And there's such a deep spiritual rift when it comes to the mother daughter dynamic. And what a lot of women don't understand is that your relationship with your mother shapes your entire life. It shapes your identity. It shapes the way that you navigate relationships. It shapes your view of the world. It shapes your self confidence, your ability to use your voice, to speak truth, to honor your dreams and your goals and your soul's mission. It shapes everything. Your mother is your first experience with God, with the divine feminine. She is your first model of womanhood. It is her example that women will emulate, whether consciously or unconsciously. And so when you're dealing with, or if you have dealt with your mother being someone who is very adversarial to you, a bully to you, or even if they weren't physically abusive, they were someone who parentified you, which is also something I see a lot in my work. A lot of my clients are eldest daughters or firstborn daughters who became parentified in their family structure, being forced to take on a lot of adult roles and responsibilities, whether it was caring for your younger siblings or doing a lot of the domestic labor in the house, having to forego their own dreams and desires to be a source of labor for the family unit. That's something that creates a lot of trauma within the psyche of a woman. And we're really a little girl who will eventually grow into a woman who doesn't have a connection to her own voice, who feels that her value is related to or directly proportional to her usefulness to other people. This is where the people pleasing archetype comes from. This is where the overgiving archetype comes from, or the woman who considers herself an empath because she is so highly attuned to the needs and the emotional needs of everybody around her to the point where she is completely disconnected and disassociated from herself. And so I have, again, because this has been coming up so much in my work and also in my own personal life, I have decided to reintroduce a new format, a new program for women to heal from the mother wound, whether it's an unconscious or conscious mother wound. And this offering is called Sovereign Daughter. And the basis of this offering, it's a 3-day program that I'm going to be doing at the end of the month. We are currently in March, just in case you're watching this after March. And I'm going to be taking women through an intensive transformation where I help you understand, the 3 levels of healing or moving through the transformative process of moving through the mother wound. And so the first aspect is the good girl contract. And I've kind of talked about this a little bit already, where a lot of women don't understand this unconscious, energetic, spiritual contract that they have with their mothers. And I'm going to be teaching you about this contract, about the loyalty bind that a lot of women are stuck in, because a lot of women want to have distance from their mothers. They want to separate from their mothers. They want to have their own identity. They feel like a little girl when they're around their mom. They still feel like their mother has like this really intense power and pull over them that they can't seem to shake. And that is the good girl contract. That's the conditioning that we receive, that's passed down through the bloodline of the mother, that tells us that we are, as women, we are designed to be a resource for other people to use. This is what your mother was raised to believe. This is what your grandmother was raised to believe, and so on and so forth down your matriarchal lineage. And that has been passed down to you. And so in breaking that good girl contract and realizing that you are not beholden to this ancient form of servitude, that begins the very first process of you moving out of this hold that your mother has on you. The second day is all about grief and rage. It's about the death of the fantasy, because so many of us are holding on to toxic relationships with our mothers. We're not standing on our own 2 feet. We're not becoming the woman that we were designed to be, because there's a part of us that is still waiting for the acknowledgement from our mother for what it is that she did to us. We're still waiting on apologies. We're still waiting on our mother to change. We're still waiting on our mother to be who we desperately, in our heart of hearts, want her to be, but she simply does not have the capacity to be. And so the second day is going to be taking you through powerful somatic embodiment practices that will allow you to feel and express the grief that you have and the rage that you have. The rage is first, the rage and the anger and the frustration. But underneath that rage and that anger and that frustration is really, really deep grief. And part of the process of healing and transforming out of the mother wound is to grieve the fantasy. It's to grieve the relationship that you wish you had. I know some of you might see women out and about, or maybe you have friends or close relatives and cousins who have really beautiful relationships with their mothers. Maybe you see these great mother daughter dynamics in TV shows and movies, like think Gilmore Girls, for instance, and it creates such tenderness in your heart because it's something that you really desperately wish that you had. And part of the healing process is to grieve that so that you can move forward instead of holding yourself back out of hope that you will have the level of relationship with your mother that is just not possible right now in your current circumstances. And then the third day is going to be about severing, like fully severing that contract, severing all of the remnants and ties that you have, and stepping into your authority. Every single process of transformation first begins with awareness. There's awareness, then there is transmutation, and then there is embodiment. And so, day 1, the good girl contract, is the awareness. Day 2, the grief and rage ritual, is the transmutation. And then day 3, severing an authority, is the embodiment. That is when you step into the woman who is her own authority, who no longer looks to her mother as the voice. Because so many of us are not living our lives through our own authentic voice. We're not hearing our own internal voice or our own internal wisdom. We are hearing the voice of our mothers, the voice that was hypercritical, the voice that was constantly yelling or telling you that you were not good enough, or criticizing you, or expressing a lot of deep jealousy towards you, because that's something that doesn't get talked about enough, is that so many of our mothers are jealous of us. They're jealous of our youth. They're jealous of our potential. They're jealous of the fact that so many of us have chosen to walk a different path from them, who have not followed the societal structures that they have followed, who've chosen to do life our own way in a way that their mothers wanted to do, but didn't feel that they had the power or the resources or the permission to do. And so much of that is a huge source of jealousy for our mothers. That voice that tells you that you're ugly or that you need to lose weight or that your body isn't good enough. So much of that comes from our mothers. And even if it's not a direct insult or criticism coming from your mother, sometimes it's more subtle and more insidious where maybe your mother was a sweet woman, but she had really, really low self esteem. And she constantly talked about her body in a negative way, or she was constantly dieting or watching what she ate, or didn't present herself in a way that really, accentuated her beauty. She was, she shied away from attention or having any type of appeal, and then you also took on that perspective or that way of being from your mother. So it's not always directly aggressive or violent behavior. Sometimes it's very, very subtle, very insidious behavior. This is something that, when I talk about that inner voice, this is really heavily related to dating as well. Like, a lot of women don't understand that the relationships that we have with men are very often a direct reflection of our relationships with our mother. There's all this talk about daddy wounds and daddy issues and things like that. But what I have discovered in my work is that most of what women refer to as daddy issues are actually the mother wound. I had a woman coming into my comments, not in my comments, but she DM'd me and she was asking me about, she felt that a lot of her issues came from her father, her absent father. But what it really came from is her mother, because we're watching our mothers partner with abusive men. We're watching our mothers accept the behavior of men who mistreat her children, who are not emotionally available, who are not supportive, who do not provide, who do not show up in a way that is supportive to the family unit. And we take on the exact same mindset and the same conditioning that our mothers have simply by observing them. It reminds me of the phrase that, don't listen to what I say, listen to what I do. Because this is what children do. Like, it doesn't matter what you say to a child. And if you're a mother, then you know that what I'm about to say is true. It doesn't matter what you say to a child. Children don't emulate what you tell them. They emulate your behavior. They emulate your embodiment, your being. And as a woman who comes from your mother, who, again, like I said at the beginning, your mother is your representation of God. She is your first experience of the divine feminine embodied in a woman. And so when you are observing and being highly attuned to the nervous system and the emotional capacity of your mother, those are the traits and characteristics that you take on. And this is why it is so important for women to really anchor in and heal any mother wounds that they carry within them, because so much of that is expressed unconsciously through their behavior, whether it is the way that you view yourself, how you show up in relationships with men, if you're heterosexual or bisexual and you date men. If you date women, then it's a little bit different, but not really. Not really. It's all essentially the same. It's how you relate to other people. It shows up in whether or not you see yourself as an overgiver or a people pleaser, if that is the energy that you're embodying in your day to day life, the way that you ask for what you want and speak your needs, whether it's speaking your needs to a partner or to friends or even at work. I've worked with women who have a very difficult time with asking for raises or, commanding a certain amount of money. All of the women that I've worked, not all of the women, but the majority of the women that I've worked with who are entrepreneurs, I've had to coach them into raising their prices. Almost every single woman I've had to coach into raising their prices because they undervalue themselves, they undersell themselves. They don't feel that they are worth what it is that they are offering, even though these women are supremely gifted, supremely talented in whatever it is that they're offering to the world. They don't feel that they have the right to ask for an amount of money that is congruent with the value that they are giving because of their perception of themselves. And so this mother wound is so, so, so deep. And There's all this conversation about decentering men right now. And I've talked about decentering men as well. And I think it's an important conversation to have. But you cannot decenter men until you first decenter your mother, because all of the issues that you have when it comes to putting men on a pedestal, to centering men, to seeing men as the primary source of power in your life, very often stems from your mother's perception of men and what it is that she instilled in you through her behavior and her own engagement with men. So when you decenter your mother first, it will make it so much easier for you to decenter men, because a lot of women struggle with that. They say, I want to decenter men. I don't want to be a pick me anymore, but I don't know how to do that. It feels impossible for me to walk away from this man that I know is not right for me, that I know is not serving me, that I know does not deserve me, that is not worthy of the beauty that I am as a woman. And it's very likely because the dynamic that you are experiencing with that man is a mirror of the dynamic of your mother and your father in many, many ways. Even if you think that your daddy was the best daddy in the world, you are not married to your daddy. So your experience with him as a woman is very different from the experience that your mother has had with him as a woman. And this is something that a lot of women don't really understand or reckon with until they sit down and have those really deep, honest conversations with their mothers. And so when I want to go back to the title of this video of your mother being your first bully. When your mother is your first bully, that is such a challenging, it creates such a dissonance in the system, because it also affects our relationships with other women. You have women that say, well, I don't get along with women. I only get along with men, or women are catty, or women are bullies, or women are compatible. And a lot of times, what's happening is women are unconsciously recreating in their outside female relationships the relationship that they have with their own mother, because their mothers were combative with them, their mothers were competitive with them, adversarial, and as I said before, jealous. And when you are not able to tap in and not only recognize and become aware of that dynamic, and to sever that dynamic that you have with your mother, that unconscious wound with your mother, it will recreate itself over and over and over again, especially in your relationships with women. So we talk about the sister wound, right? The sister wound meaning a lot of women have a hard time getting along. There's a lot of conflict, but the sister wound is just an extension of the mother wound. It is the mother daughter dynamic that plays out in all of our relationships with other women. And so, if you are someone that was bullied at home, it's very likely that you were bullied in school or at work. Or on the flip side, you became the bully. You became a woman who has gone out and bullied other women because it was the only way that you could find a sense of power, or a sense of autonomy, or a sense of authority, which is a very, very distorted way of claiming autonomy, authority, and sovereignty. It's the opposite of authority, autonomy, and sovereignty. And so, in the Sovereign Daughter, which is my offering that I'm going to be starting at the end of the month, like I said, we're going to be walking through all of the three shifts that need to happen for you to become a woman who stands in your authority, who is no longer triggered by your mother. I want to talk a little bit about my experience with this, because I mentioned that this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. I am someone who was very heavily bullied by my mother. My mother was my first bully. She was my first adversary. And it was very, very painful to be a child and to not understand why the woman who's telling me she loves me is putting her hands on me, is saying horrible things to me, is slamming me into walls and smacking me in the face and scratching my chest and ripping my clothes down the front of my body, because she's in such a rage that she sees me as her outlet. She sees me as her punching bag. And it took a lot of really deep work for me to come to a place where I am no longer triggered by my mother, where I am no longer beholden to my mother's powerful gravitational pull. Throughout my 20s, I had a really hard time because I was so angry and so needy in a way that I never would have admitted that I was coming from a place of need back then, because I just felt like I was angry and rageful. But my need was coming from this deep need, this deep desire for my mother to acknowledge the things that she had done to me, for her to apologize for the things that she had done to me. And it took a long time for me to recognize that she does not have the capacity to do that. She just doesn't. And by recognizing that she doesn't have the capacity to do that, by recognizing that my healing, my growth, my evolution cannot be dependent upon me receiving something from my mother, because this is why a lot of you are struggling. A lot of you are struggling in in your relationships with your mothers, because you are needing them to give you something that they do not have the capacity to give you. And you are making your healing and your growth and your evolution dependent upon receiving that. You're telling yourself, I cannot move forward or I cannot heal unless she tells the truth about what she did. But your mother does not have the capacity to do that. And when you finally accept that, when you finally recognize that, you will be liberated from needing anything from her. And that, more than anything, it's ultimately your inner child who's coming from that place of need. It's your inner child who is needing that acknowledgement, who's needing that acceptance, who's needing that validation, who's needing to be seen, and who's needing to be heard by your mother. But you are a grown woman now. You are an adult. And it is your responsibility to take over the role of mother for your inner child or your inner teen, whatever age you want to use, whatever past version of yourself. It is your responsibility in this present iteration of you, excuse me, to be the authority that this young version of you can look to as guidance, to look to as the authority, to look to as the mother that is going to heal them and nurture them and honor them, because your birth mother doesn't have the capacity to do that. It doesn't mean that she can't potentially have the capacity to do that. But right now, you are living your life on the hope and dream that she will become that. And in doing so, you are holding yourself back from being in your full expression, from being in your fullest potential. And so, when it comes to my own relationship, just like I said, it took me a while to get to the point where I could release release my mother from needing to be anything other than what she is, anything other than who she is. And by releasing and liberating my mother, I released and liberated myself. And so now when my mother says really terrible and awful things to me, which she doesn't do it in the frequency that she used to, because I no longer show up in my relationship with her the way that I used to. I don't show up to with her in a way that is combative or needy or needing to be right, needing her to hear all of the things and needing her to acknowledge whatever it is I need her to acknowledge. I simply am able to be present and allow her to exist as she is. So when she says awful things to me, like a couple of weeks ago, I was having a conversation with her that kind of went off the rails. It not kind of, it went off the rails. It went off the rails. And she told me that she was glad that she beat me. She told me she was glad that she beat me. And my mom is ultra religious, very much spare the rod, spoil the child, has a biblical scripture for everything to justify everything that she's ever done. And when she said it, and she was actually yelling it, she said that she was glad that she beat me. And she said that by beating me, she saved my life. And then and in between that, she kept saying, "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus." Like, this is my mother. Okay. And I know a lot of you, especially if you are a Black woman, I know a lot of you have ultra religious mothers who are indoctrinated into the Christianity cult who feel the same way. And so when she said that to me, first of all, it was the first time that she actually said that. Either in the past, she would either deny that she abused me, or she would find a way to justify, well, you provoked me, or you were misbehaving, or you were rebelling, or whatever her excuse was for. But this is the first time she flat out said, I'm glad I did it. And to me, it was kind of like, oh, there it is. Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because the truth is healing, the truth is liberating. And so I'm in a place in my life where I can hear something that could be very, very painful, but because it's truthful and because it's honest, I'm able to immediately receive it and accept it. And so when she said that, I didn't get angry. I didn't get upset. I didn't go cry about it. I was just like, okay, because I've done such deep work where I can let my mom be in the expression that she's in and I don't take it personally. And that's where a lot of y'all are still struggling is you're taking it so personally the way that your mother is showing up. And what a lot of you don't understand yet is that the behavior of your mother is because she is covering an immense amount of shame. She is covering an immense amount of guilt. A lot of our mothers feel tremendous shame and guilt for the things that they did, but they are not able to overcome their ego in order to acknowledge that. And so they express themselves through volatility or violence, or for some women, some mothers, it's very passive aggressive, like, oh, well, I just must be the most horrible mother in the world. Like, I'm sure some of you have had your mothers say that to you, or they'll give you the silent treatment. There's a lot of different ways that women will cover the guilt and shame that they have for the ways in which they failed you as a mother. And they will do it in ways that don't require them to engage with the deep, heavy, painful emotions that would surface if they allowed themselves the space to be in a truthful, honest place around how they feel about what it is that they did and how they showed up as a mother for you. And so the ultimate goal is for you to be able to get to a place where you can hear your mother say something, that is, for all intents and purposes, very fucked up and laugh about it, or just hold a composure and calmness in the space of hearing something that's so messed up. And I know that that's a dream for a lot of you, and you just don't understand, like, how can I get here? I put a poll in my stories on Instagram yesterday asking people, like, do you feel like you have a mother wound? And when I last checked, it was 75% said yes, and the answer was yes. And I just don't know how to fix it. I'm going to check it really quick and see what they said. So yeah, right now, 66% of my poll said yes, and I don't know how to heal from it. The other 34% said no, my mom is and was my bestie. And I've had a couple of women actually reach out to me and say that I do have a mother wound, but my mom is also my bestie, which is also true. Like, there are so many of you that have been so negatively impacted by the experiences that you've had with your mother, but you still ultimately have a good relationship with her. Maybe she has owned up to the things that she's done, or maybe you have just chosen to continue to have a great relationship with her regardless of that, and you haven't actually dealt with all of the things that have risen to the surface for you to acknowledge and heal within yourself. This is such a complex relationship. It's, to me, the mother-daughter relationship is the most complex relationship that there is, because there's so much underpinning this dynamic because of patriarchy and the severing of the matriarchy, the severing of this beautiful coherence between the mother and who it is that she gives birth to, and all of that was destroyed by patriarchy. And so this work that I'm doing is to help find not just individual reconciliation with my clients or even with myself, but collective reconciliation between the mother and the daughter. Because as the patriarchy continues to crumble, as it continues to fall apart, that doesn't mean that these relationships are automatically going to heal. We still need to do the work to heal these relationships. And so if this video really resonated with you, if you are someone who has struggled in your relationship with your mother was your first bully, she might still be a bully to you, and you feel powerless to shift the dynamic. Maybe when you're in her presence, you still feel like a child. You're a grown woman. You have a successful business. You have a family. You have built, empires, and you've created a beautiful life for yourself. But one look or one word from your mother makes you feel like a 7-year-old all over again. Or maybe you realize the way in which your mother navigated her own relationships with men, or with your father, has directly impacted the way that you navigate relationships with men. Maybe you have become a pick me because your mother was a pick me with low self-esteem. Maybe you were indoctrinated into the cults of Abrahamic religions, and because of that, your view of yourself as a woman has been completely distorted, and it's a something that your mother is still captured by. There are so many levels to this, and there are so many ways that this can impact the life of a woman who is still hearing that inner voice or the inner conditioning that came to her from her mother. So if this is you, then I want to invite you into Sovereign Daughter, which is my 3-day intensive masterclass portal that I'm doing at the end of the month. That starts on March 27th, and we're going to be doing it for 3 days in a row, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, a beautiful weekend event. So, first day, Friday, like I said, is the Good Girl contract. That's going to be severing that contract, understanding where that unearned loyalty comes from, why you are in the mess that you are in right now, and giving you that bright-eyed awareness to your circumstances so that you can begin moving into day 2, which is the transmutation phase. This is where you get to feel that grief, feel that rage, all of those feelings that you have bottled up and suppressed over the years that have manifested into diseases, reproductive disorders, depression, anxiety, all of these things that you were carrying because you haven't allowed yourself the space to move through the emotional expression that is your birthright. We'll be going through the grief and rage cycle on day 2, and eliminating, killing the fantasy so that you can step into reality and create from a space of coherence in the truth of where you are right now in terms of your dynamic with your mother. And then the 3rd day is all about completing the severing of all of those cords and stepping into your authority. This is the embodiment piece where you get to stand up as the woman who is the sole authority in your life. So that Sovereign Daughter starts on March 27th. It ends on March 29th. We're currently in the early bird for this. And something that I'm doing very differently for this offering is that I am making this an affiliate offering. So for every woman that signs up, you will receive an affiliate link that you can then share with the other women in your life, the other women that are in your communities, because I know that you know somebody who needs this work. And I'm offering 40% affiliate commission on this offering. So for instance, if you sign up at the early bird, and that's $222, excuse me, that's the early bird, then for every woman that signs up under your link, you will receive an $88 commission. If they sign up under the early bird, which is $333, then you will receive a $133 commission per woman. And then the final price by the time this process begins on March 27th will be $555. And for every woman who signs up with your link at that level, you will receive $222 commission. And I've been wanting to do a commission offering for a while, and this is my first time doing it, and I'm so excited because part of my work is about not just creating abundance for myself, but creating abundance for all of the women that come into my field. And so by you coming into this offering and then sharing this work with other women, every single time someone signs up, you will get 40% of that back into your pocket so that you can have another avenue stream for yourself. Because like I said, this work is so important. It is, to me, some of the most important work that a woman can do because, like I said, everything that you embody as a woman, who you are, how you navigate your relationship with yourself, your outside relationships, career, your soul mission, everything stems from your relationship with your mother. So when you clear that mother wound, everything will open up for you from that space. If you are watching this video after March 27th, don't worry, the offering will still be available. All of the calls are being recorded and they will be immediately uploaded to a course portal. So anyone that signs up will automatically get access to the course portal with all of the recordings so that as soon as you sign up, you will have that available to you. So even if you're watching this after March 27th, 2026, you can still sign up for Sovereign Daughter to get this transmission, to go through this embodiment practice so that you can step into your sovereign authority as a woman. Thank you so much for listening to this video. I really hope that it resonated with you and that it gave you deeper insight into why you're carrying what it is that you've been carrying, how to move through the deep pain and the deep rift of your own mother being your first bully, and understanding that there are ways for you to move into a space where you are no longer being subconsciously driven by the sins of your mother, that where you are no longer being governed by the voice and the conditioning of your mother, where you get to be the sole power, the sovereign authority in your life. I will see you on the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Please drop down into the comments and let me know how this landed for you. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, so that I can keep making more content like this for you. And I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you soon.